As some of you might have realized, I've been playing around with shape keys in my last couple of shorts, as well as integrating sculpting into how I model things. This time around, I decided to try it with a non-human head structure. I also tried to give the model fur, but I don't really think that worked well. Probably gonna have to look at some tutorials for that eventually. On the other side of things, though, I think I've gotten pretty good at texturing the skin flesh of various creatures. But we'll talk more about that when I actually get to the texturing. The modeling section was pretty simple, even if my proportions did end up looking a little bit like an Oblivion character. Start with a cube, loop cut it in half, put a mirror modifier on it to sculpt both sides symmetricalized, making sure clipping's enabled. Then just extrude out the rough shape of it, leaving a decent amount of geometry around the eyes and mouth, and then making your little mouth pocket. While you're doing that, slap it with an initial level of subdivision modifier so it's all rounded out. Then once the basic model's done, convert that to mesh to make all the modifiers real. Then put a multi-resolution on it so you can do the sculpting, and give the multi-resolution modifier a subdivision or two. In sculpting mode, I pretty much just use the basic draw brush and then the smooth brush to touch stuff up. And with those two, I worked out pretty much all the extra details that are on the mesh. The smooth brush in particular also helped remove the residual blockiness of the head. For my attempt at making fur, I went into edit mode, made 3 different vertex groups that the hair was going to be emitted from, put 3 extra material slots onto the model for the hair, and then made 3 different particle sims to emit the hair. For the actual hair emitter settings, I had children interpolated, turned on, and then the main hair shaping came from having the radial clumping set up. But, like I said, didn't really end up looking right. But when I at the very least got the different hair colors emitting from the right spot, I started working on the texturing. For the hair textures, it's pretty much a noise modifier into a color ramp with two different versions of a similar color into the color output of a hair principal shader, and that's pretty much it.
But for the skin flesh...
It's actually also a pretty simple setup. We got two principal BSDFs with a noise shader factor with a little bit of color ramp in there just to make it a bit sharper. One of them is a very dark pinkish brown, and the other is a lighter fleshy pink. But one of the two factors that sells it as being skin flesh is that both principal shaders have subsurface on set to random walk skin, which lets light reflect through the surface, like it does with real flesh and skin. And we also give it a bit of noise displacement so it's not a completely smooth surface, just very low scale on that. But after the shading comes the fun part, the shape keys. Shape keys have the same kind of appeal as setting all the sliders on the character creator to maximum or minimum, to me. I don't know why. But to use them, first you put down the base shape key, and then you put down whichever shape key you're going to start working with. And very important, if you have a multi-resolution modifier on, like this one does, you need to make sure you set your multi-resolution modifier's sculpt setting to 0, because otherwise you won't be editing your shape key, you'll be editing your base mesh. But once you do that to your multi-resolution and put in your initial base mesh shape key in, you can then make shape keys for all of the different modifications you want to make to your mesh. You select the shape key you're editing, set its value to maximum, go into either sculpt or edit mode and reposition your mesh, and then that shape key will, depending on what its slider is set to, have your mesh deform how you edited it. So for example, you can have one shape key that makes one of the eyes close, or another shape key that makes the mouth open a little bit, or a smile, or a frown, or the brows furrowing, or the several dozen other shape keys I ended up making for this mesh. And then once you have your shape keys, you can animate them just like any other property in Blender. And shape keys do work with armatures, so if you want, you can have your armature rigged up to do the bigger animations, and then use shape keys on your mesh to control face movements or what have you. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it right now as I'm recording the audio for this video, that would probably let me do lightsabers without having to have the lightsaber blade the separate object. In fact, it would just straight up let me do lightsaber blades without having to be the separate object. Not to mess with that. Anyway, if you've enjoyed seeing me make this uncanny valley abomination and explain how I did so, please like and subscribe. And also, if you're interested in joining, the current Community Art Showcase Challenge is on the prompt of landscape. So if you want to take part, make some sort of art with the prompt of landscape and post it to the channel Discord. You've got until the end of June 30th, so if you're watching this about when it comes out, you got plenty of time. And if you're watching it in the future, I guess check the channel Discord for what the current one is. Either way, I'll see you in the next video.